Well, this is a very big week for Dan Really Likes Wine, as it is a very big week for the industry as a whole, because this weekend I will be down in the Cape for the Cape Wine Auction, and it is a huge event for the industry coming together to raise money for charity. And no small amount, 23 million rand raised just last year. I had the great privilege of being the MC and auctioneer, and over the last few years I've seen the event grow and grow and grow. This is the event where Thibaut Touch's bottle of Touch Cabernet Sauvignon, the Touch Warwick, sold for 1.3 million rand. It is the event where people have been sent off all around the world on great trips and terrific adventures, and every single cent raised from the event goes to charity, and some terrific charities. Last year I visited the Pebble Project, which is run in partnership with Creation, Caroline Martin and her team, doing some extraordinary work in a very poor area of South Africa. Nicola Harris and her Click Foundation championing the right for education across South Africa, and many more causes that are all benefiting from this quite wonderful day out. And as with last year, there'll be a barrel tasting on the Friday night and then the main auction on the Saturday. And that auction has got some extraordinary opportunities. You could be off to watch Manchester United play football. You could be spending time on a desert island in the Indian Ocean, heading off for a villa in France. I think there's a villa in Italy as well. The chance to do all sorts of cool things, but most importantly, raise money for charity. Now, along the way, there'll be a lot of wine up for auction and a lot of wine to drink. And in celebration of the auction coming up this weekend, I've got some of that wine this week. And although I'm going to open it now, I'm actually going to leave the first bottle for a while because it is linked to one of the lots. This is a bottle of the 1992 Thelema Cabernet Sauvignon. And the guys at Thelema very kindly sent it up to me, along with a parcel of wine that Darielle, the auction director, sent my way, just to warm up for the weekend and ensure that the voice is in good shape for a long afternoon of auctioneering. Now, this is a bottle of wine that is now 26 years old. So what I'm going to do, decant it, set it aside, and at the end of the show, we'll see how it's drinking. And there we go, 26 years old. There's a fair bit of jam to the bottom of that cork, but the cork itself still in great condition, and that says that this has been stored beautifully. All right, so that's the 92 Thelema Cabernet Sauvignon. We'll leave that to rest and come back to it a little later. Now, while the Thelema catches its breath in every sense, something a little more recent. Now, this doesn't relate to the auction, it actually relates to the night before, and a wine that might take you a little while to pronounce. You might think that's Isli, Isleida. It's actually Islay. I think that's correct. And it refers to the granddaughter of the owner of Cape Point Vineyards, who've made quite a name for themselves in recent years with their Sauvignon Blanc. But this wine here is getting a huge amount of attention as well. It is predominantly Sauvignon Blanc, but it's got some Semillon in there as well. And it is a wine that in its most recent incarnation picked up 5 stars at John Platter. And if you head to the Friday night American Express barrel auction, where you get the chance to taste wine from different barrels and buy a case of something that catches your attention, you will have the opportunity, should you so wish, of a lot on the Friday night that includes a vertical tasting of the Islay. And for a wine that has won a Platter 5-star, and from an estate that's made its name with some superb white wine led by the Sauvignon Blanc that forms the backbone of this particular wine, I suspect it'll be a lot that's in high demand. Now, what you'd be expecting from a Sauvignon Blanc with a splash of Semillon, I think it's about 15%, is it just fortifies it a bit, gives it a little more character, a little more backbone. The colour is already slightly darker, and the nose suggests there's a bit more to this as well. If you're going to name a wine after your granddaughter, you want it to be something quite special, and Sobrat van der Spey has got something that I think will do his granddaughter justice. It's a lovely wine, it's got that Sauvignon Blanc feel, but there is that little bit more to it, and that's the Semillon coming through, and it'll age brilliantly, which I think is why at Takara on Friday night at the barrel tasting, this could be in a lot of demand. Vertical tasting of the Islay, see it over the years, see it unfolding, it's a real treat to put onto your target list. Our second wine to taste today comes from a good friend of Dan Really Likes Wine, Mike Ratcliffe, who is the man behind the Cape Wine Auction. He's worked incredibly hard together with his fellow trustees to turn it into the event it is today, and there is a very solid Warwick inclusion. The Morukuru Lodge will only open in July of this year. It is down in the Nederburg estate. It's a glorious part of the world, enchanting, untouched, and this new lodge, which is very small, very bespoke, very luxurious, will be your home for 3 nights. You'll arrive by helicopter and you'll be lavished with plenty of wine, including, I've got no doubt, one of the favourites of Mr. Warwick, his trilogy that quite rightly has been acclaimed around the world. Mike Ratcliffe is not just one of wine, but one of life's great marketers. He tells a great story, but he also backs those stories up, and he has thrown himself wholeheartedly into the wine auction, also into Stellenbosch wine. You're going to see more of him at a more formal level in the Stellenbosch wine community in 2018, and you'll also see him if you buy this particular lot, because Mike and his wife Pip, who's a lot younger and a lot more pleasant to spend time with and a lot easier on the eye, will be joining Mike, and they'll be your hosts for your 3 days should you buy this lot, with all of your food and all of your wine, and a really, really unique experience. The trilogy I've had a number of times over the years. It's Cab Sauv, it's Cab Franc, and it's Merlot. A bit of French oak in there to wrap it all together, and you've got a very classic style of red wine. And not hard to see why it's always a Warwick favourite. So if you do buy this one, make sure that Mr. Ratcliffe brings some of this along with him for you to taste. It's a nice, strong red blend of a very classic style, and it's part of what is a terrific lot at the Cape Wine Auction. And maybe if you're watching now and you happen to have a ticket, and you'll need one because it's sold out already, possibly I'll be selling this to you on Saturday out at Rustenburg. On to wine number 3, a South African institution and one of the coolest lots you'll find this weekend at the Cape Wine Auction. The brand is Nederburg, needs no introduction. This particular wine from their Ingenuity range, their Spanish blend, it's a combination of mostly Tempranillo, Tempranillo if you're in South America, where the double L is pronounced SH, and some Graciano, about 17% or thereabouts, completing a very big, meaty red wine. If you like your Riojas, it's kind of headed into that broader sort of space. And it's been an interesting last 12 months or so for Nederburg. They've moved away from a couple of their smaller brands, focusing on the bigger ones. Richard Rushton, at the head of Distell, is leading Nederburg into a really exciting time. He could have been a professional golfer, professional cricketer. Instead, he's overseeing one of the biggest liquor brands in the world. And I think Nederburg is one of his brands that's doing some really cool stuff at the moment, including making some exceptional wine. This is one example. Another is their Bin 163. There is very little available, but you could get 6 bottles of it if you happen to be the winning bidder for this auction item. And so 6 bottles of wine. It's a very rare wine. Is there anything else? Is there? Ah, yes. There is the Cervelo bike that Mark Cavendish rides on the Tour de France, one of the great riders of the modern era. It is an aero road bike. It's valued at close on 70,000 Rand. It's in the team colours of Dimension Data, the South African-led team that raises money for Quebec, a great charity. And then there is a 5-day trip to the Tour de France, including business class flights, your accommodation, your meals, and a chance to watch one of the world's defining sports events. Throw in that wine I mentioned at the start, and Nederburg have come up with something terrific, as they have with this little Spanish combination. For what it's worth, a tip from Dan's guide to looking at a wine list when in Europe, and having just been in Switzerland, where the wine list generally requires the GDP of Belgium to buy a single bottle. If you don't know exactly what's in there, and quite often you won't because there's so much wine from across Europe, I'll often skip the French and look for a bottle of Spanish wine, where usually the price is significantly less, but the quality is just as good and in some cases better. While this isn't Spanish wine, it's Spanish style, and if you like this, it suggests that some time exploring the winelands of Spain might be a holiday well spent. I got this particular bottle of Nederburg from a guy called Dave Carruthers. He's about 120 years old, and until last year was the marketing director at Distell. I'd hosted a conference for Distell, and he very kindly gave this to me, promised me I would really enjoy it, and I certainly do. It has that big, warm-hearted Spanish Rioja feel to it, which I love. I can drink gallons of the stuff. And it says to me I need to get to Spain to do a proper wine exploration holiday, and it's certainly on the agenda. But given the option, I might look at heading off to Paris instead with this lot, because you'll get to hang out and spend time with Team Dimension data. And I can tell you from personal experience, it's a great trip, because last year, Doug Ryder, who runs the team, Jeremy Ord, team sponsor, very kindly invited me over, joined them for a couple of days. It was unforgettable. Time in Paris, a few great meals, and then watching the riders come down the Champs-Élysées was magical. And wherever your 5 days take you on the Tour de France with this trip, you're going to have an exceptional experience. You'll also get a really, really cool bicycle, but I think as good as anything, you'll get those really special 6 bottles of award-winning wine. Won the Arcadia Award for Best Cabernet Sauvignon in the world. 6 of them will be yours, and what a way to toast going to the Tour de France and supporting charity at the Cape Wine Auction. And so to the last of this week's wine. Well, we've had a bit of a break, had a bit of a walk, watched some cricket on television, and in the meantime allowed this bottle of Thelema to sit for about an hour or so here in the decanter and just get a bit of air, get a bit of oxygen, and escape from the bottle in which it has been held captive now for 26 years. And what better reward when you break free of this bottle than to find yourself on Dan Really Likes Wine. Well, Thelema doesn't have a lot on Saturday at the main auction with Nederburg out at Rustenburg. Instead, it is part of the American Express barrel auction on the Friday night. And this is part of the silent auction. It is a vertical tasting of Thelema. And Thelema, one of the grand dames of South African wine, a lot of history, a lot of pedigree, a lot of heritage. A 26-year-old wine can be a little bit hit and miss. It's really a case in South Africa of not the quality of the wine, but the quality of the storage, the quality of the cork. And as we saw earlier, the cork came out in one go, didn't crumble at all. I'm pretty confident. There's a slightly curious nose on that. Ammonia meets hazelnuts, for want of a better description. But it leads into a wine that just speaks history. In 26 years, it's sat patiently waiting for this very day. The colour gives away the age immediately. It's a little sharp, maybe not quite at its very, very, very best, but it's still a really well-drinking wine, and it's going to be part of a collection will be most sought after, both for the wine it is and for the heritage, the Thelema name that it represents. And that's part of what's a really cool night on the Friday. You walk around, you taste a lot of unique wine that the winemakers have made for the barrel selection, and put in a bid, see if you can go away with something that is quite unique. This year, these added selections like the Thelema vertical tasting, some older wine, some rare wine, some unique wine, going to be a lot of fun and a terrific prelude to Saturday. And as a wine event, it's peerless. It's the best wine event I go to through the course of the year. Yes, because the wine's terrific. Yes, because the food that goes with it is excellent. Yes, because the people who go along are terrific. But what's really important is how the wine community and the wine industry have come together and raised so much money for so many outstanding causes. I'll be at the helm on Friday and Saturday. It's an event I love going to. It's an event I'm very excited about. and it's an event that's going to have a huge impact yet again on some of the poorer and more disadvantaged communities in South Africa. It makes for a terrific couple of days, great wine, good karma, and some excellent causes. Cheers.